Hey folks, Grant Estrad here with BTF, Big Tough Farmer. I just wanted to do a quick intro before we get the interview with Will Harris started. First off, I wanted to thank Will and the whole crew over at White Oak Pasture. They were great to visit with. They were very welcoming, and we look forward to returning over there for another visit. So thank you, crew, for that. The line of questioning that I was asking Will was intentional, because oftentimes in agriculture we really get bogged down with the boots on the ground tactics, techniques, equipment, and gear, and I did not want to really get into that with Will. We could have talked about rotational grazing, what kind of hot fence they use and what kind of energizers they use and all that kind of stuff. That's not the point of what we wanted to talk about. I really wanted to kind of get into the weeds a little bit with the mindset, the strategy, some coping mechanisms, how we view some things, and how we think about some things. Farming as a business is very difficult, whether or not if you're doing commodity farming or direct-to-consumer farming. There's a lot of things against us above and beyond just having an average business. And so we really need to plan ahead, have a really good strategy. We need to look into the future and really know what's coming about. And so that's why I really wanted to kind of get into the weeds a little bit with strategy with Will. So I hope you enjoy everything. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the channel with other people. This is a new platform. We're just getting started. And we really would appreciate any support that we get from you guys. So without further ado, here's Will Harris of White Oak Pastures. Hey folks, this is Grant Estrad. I'm here with Big Tough Farmer platform that we're doing, and it's my privilege to be here with Will Harris of White Oak Pastures in Bluffton, Georgia. And we're actually in Bluffton. We're sitting in Will's office right now, and we're here to discuss a little bit from the book that he's recently come out with. It's available in hardcover, also available in audiobook. So we're definitely not going to have time to cover a fraction of it today. So go out and get the book and take a look at it. It's totally worth it. So, well, Will, thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my office.
In your own office, yeah. As a matter of fact. So, yeah. Touring the farm was a lot of fun today. So I really did appreciate showing us around and everything.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to start out our talk about this book. There's so much stuff in the book that, like I said, we're not going to have time to cover it, but I did want to read this part of the book, and that's one thing that got me excited about reading it. You were talking about your shift from being an industrial cattle man, having that industrial model strategy, and you were talking about your transition from that, and this is what you wrote. But this surface level niceness did not reflect the truth of what was occurring. That several decades of raising food this way had been hell on the land, hell on the animals, and though it took me longer to realize, hell on the local community too. Sure, there was a reliable yield of product for my operation to sell. There was a satisfying income and comfortable life for me, but it came at a terrible cost. My farm had lost the abundance that gets generated when nature is working as it should, in a vigorous cycling of many, many different life forms, all growing, dying, and decaying symbolically, and then feeding back and to start over again. I lost the abundance that ripples out from the ecosystem itself to a farmer's business and his family and to the local workforce. I even lost any hope that my kids would ever want to join me on the farm or raise their kids anywhere near it. So you mentioned a lot of things in here, your business and your family and the community. And one thing that we're talking about with Big Tough Farmer is, we're not doing the farm by ourselves. There's so many other people that are involved in it. Our team and our partners and our customers. Did you want to talk a little bit about, how the community is important to you and the staff is important to you, and how you rely on them to do what you're doing these days?
Yeah, the town is very important to me, but it wasn't initially. Bluffton, this little town, peaked in population in 1900. By the time I was born in 1954 and knew what was going on, the town was in decline. And everybody knew it was in decline. And I was raised with the assuredness that Bluffton was just be more and more of a ghost town, and it was. By the time I started White Oak Pastures, or White Oak Pastures really started being an economic driver, which was about 2000 or so, the town was just in decay. Nobody lived here except old, poor people. And there was no business in town except a little peanut buying point and the post office part-time. End of story. Houses were being torn down, rotted down. It was just in absolute decline. And I didn't think there was anything I could do about it, and it wasn't a passion of mine. My passion was the land and the animals. That's what I cared about. But in the process of changing the way we managed the land and the animals, we wound up hiring a lot of people. Today we're the largest private employer in the county. And we brought people in here, and it was fun, and I liked it, but I didn't really think about the ramification on the town. And one day I had a visitor here, and he just said, kind of anecdotally, "This is a nice little town." And I was waiting for the punchline, and there wasn't one. He meant it. And I looked, and this is nice. And I started focusing on that, and now it's truly as much a focus of what we do as the land and the animals, the community. And I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, we were having lunch at your restaurant today, and one of the gentlemen that was waiting on us, he had mentioned he had a health issue, and he couldn't wait to get back and to work.
And I think that's pretty common among our top tier of employees. Now we got a tier of employees, they good people. I love them. They just here to get a check. They have no passion for it. But most of our employees and all the management have a passion for it.
Yeah, and then how do you do anything intentionally to encourage that passion from your team? Like how do you cultivate that? How do you help create that?
Yeah, I don't know. You care about them, they care about you.
Yeah. Well, that's how it works, right? So if you treat your team or your staff like a widget, or whatever, they may not return that to you. But if you're going to receive as much as you kind of give to them.
And my top tier of employees are remarkably sophisticated people. They're not your typical farm employees. We do farm labor, but they're really most of them they're not kids. They're your age, I'd say from 20 to 40. Most of them are educated. Most of them are not from here, and a large percentage are from an urban or suburban kind of a background, not uber rural like we are. And most of them chose to come here. Like they had a career somewhere else doing something else and done pretty good with it. Decided they didn't want to do that anymore and chose to come here. Most of them probably won't be here for a long time. Most of them are here for a year or two or three, and they're passionate about the land, the animals, the community. And they put a lot into it. I'm not proud of what we pay them. I pay all I can. This is a very break-even-ish business. I can't pay them more, and we pay significantly over the county average. This Clay County, Georgia, is where we're sitting. It was the poorest county in the United States of America in 2020. So one reason we got pretty good people is of the local people, we can kind of get the best because we got a better gig going. But then it creates the environment that draws these more sophisticated, non-rural, non-southern, non-ag people here.
Right, right. And then, yeah, those folks that you described, those folks leaving, you know, a career or another job, they wanted to come on the farm. And you kind of went through that yourself, going from an industrial model to more of a regenerative model. You were looking for a little more because, like, you weren't satisfied with what you were doing. So you were looking for another source of passion, basically.
Well, I became overtly dissatisfied with the way I was doing it. I still loved the cattle business. I loved agriculture. I loved the land. But it was just a very intensive industrial guy. He used and abused the tools and the technologies, and was financially successful. I mean, we certainly weren't rich people. We made money every year and lived comfortably. But it really it was distasteful to me to do the things I was doing. You know, the welfare, the land stewardship, and then much later the rural economic outcome of that, the way I was doing business.
Yeah. And then how would you describe how you feel about the business now? Are you getting the satisfaction that you're looking for out of it?
I couldn't be happier.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I could not be happier.
Awesome. And then that passion is what is bringing a lot of people to, possibly leaving the city to go homestead, just a subsistence homestead. They're maybe working remote because now internet is out in rural areas. So they're homesteading. They're looking at starting their own farm that might be looking to leave the city, work on a farm. But that passion kind of only gets you so far. What I've noticed a lot, and we talked about this, is that there's a high rate of burnout among people kind of getting into agriculture. Do you have any advice or words of wisdom for those folks who are looking to get that passion and actually do something with it, but be able to stay in the game long enough to get where they want to
go? Yeah. Be clear that what we do here is not homesteading. I'm pro for people who want to do that. I think it's great. That's not what this is. This is commercial production of food to market to consumers. And I believe that if we treat the land the way it's supposed to be treated, and by that I mean help the cycles of nature stay healthy and enforced and in doing their job. We'll talk about that later. But if you keep the cycles of nature working optimally, it yields an abundance. And we market that abundance for the most we can get for it. And that's the living that we enjoy and share with our employees. That's the way that works. The substance deal is fine. I'm not opposed to that in any way, but to support what you said, I think it's hard for people to stay in that. We have a lot of people that come here on our intern program, and they want to be a sustenance farmer somewhere. That's fine. We support that. But then when they find a significant other, they may not want to live like that. Or if they do find somebody that wants to live like that, and they have children, those children may not want to live. They may want alligators on shirts and stuff. So I am not in any way opposed to or view negatively subsistence farming, but it does worry me when I have people come here and I usually talk to them about it. Now that's fine, pal. That's great. I think it's wonderful. Let's talk about it just a minute. Be sure. Let's explore it now. Then after you invest 10 or 20 years in it and learn some things.
Right, because one thing that happens, so let's say you're moving from the city to a rural area, there might not be ordering pizza, there's no cocktail hour down the street anymore. Your friends who your friendship was based on, shopping, going out to eat, typical city entertainment type things, you move out to a rural area and all of a sudden they kind of like stop being your friends or they don't want to visit you anymore. You know, you end up sacrificing a lot of that, and that ends up being more than what the folks, you know, bargained for. So they were really, you know, passionate and excited about the idea. And then when they got out there, then they kind of realized what the deal really is.
Where you're sitting right there is 15 miles to a fast food place, 15 miles to a gas station, 15 miles to anything. So that may not sound like much, but it has an impact on people when they love it here until they don't. And that's not true across the board. I mean, I love it here, and many people do, but it's a different kind of deal, and you need to be prepared for it.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's say, you know, you've done that, and then somebody is doing some sort of whatever the rural activity is, whatever the farm activity may be, and then that excitement kind of gets turned into frustration, or they might be demoralized because they had a flock of broilers or some cattle die on them. You know, whatever usually happens out there. How do you, when you're faced with those agricultural woes of, you know, stuff is dying, bad weather, just all the things that are out of your control are happening, like how do you tend to deal and manage with that yourself? Like how do you keep your chin up when it's kind of a suck fest out there?
Well, that's probably not as big an issue with me as a lot of people, because I was raised in this. You know, I was my dad was a cattleman, great cattleman, and we would have cattle die, and he'd say, "The only way to not having dead cows, don't have no cows."
Right. Yeah. If you have livestock, you have dead stock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I'm not saying it can't be an event that's traumatic enough that I'm disheartened by it, but it's part of the deal. And then I go into it every morning knowing that there's gonna be some stuff happen today that I don't want. I know that. And expectation, I guess, is the right answer. You got to go into it with the expectation that if you have 100 cows, you're not going to have 100 live calves. It's not the way that works. Some won't get pregnant. Some will lose their pregnancy. Some will have the baby and the baby will die. Get used to it. That's going to be like that.
This is part of the deal.
Birth, growth, death, decay.
Yep, that's the cycle. Yep. And then when folks come and work for you here and they intern for you here, do you have to talk to them about that kind of stuff and kind of coach them through that? Is that a thing that it trips other people up though?
We certainly don't guarantee all our interns we're going to teach y'all all about this stuff. And what we promise them is we will teach you will raise poultry for a week, you'll raise cows for a week, you'll raise hogs for a week, you'll work in the shop a week. There's a schedule, and we stay on it. And I'm also very, very aggressive in telling them, now, you're not enrolled in a university here. And the guy or gal you work for is not a trained educator. They are trained stockman or mechanic or whatever. And when you ask them something, they may not put everything down and give you a detailed explanation of exactly what's happening here. You may have to figure it out. Some of my managers are really good communicators, some are not. Now, if you ask a question and you don't get a satisfactory answer, ask somebody else. And ask somebody else. And at the end of the day, ask me. If you ask me, I'm going to tell you what I believe. And I think that is gone. If I make it really clear to these interns and when they come in that this is not your university setting where those guys are not hired to teach you this. They're hired to raise cows. You just got to have a good understanding. Like everything.
Yeah, so there a lot of that responsibility. They need to understand that they're participating in their educational time here.
And the way it works is, when I started the intern program, I really didn't want an intern program. I wanted to have an option for people that wanted to tell me. They want to tell me how they were going to do it. We'd have young people come and say, "Hey, I want to come work for you, and you don't have to pay me anything. And I'll work here for 2 weeks. Then I got to be gone a month. Then I'm coming back. I want to stay a month." And I can't do that. If you get hurt, I gotta have workers' comp. B, if I tell you to get in that ditch, you gotta get in the ditch. I don't want to hear you're not paying me. And this is a C and a D and an E. It's just. So I sat down at this table and worked up an intern program that I didn't think anybody would participate in. And the first, I charged them $2,000 for 3 months. But then I paid them minimum wage, and it was, it was not designed to make people want to come, but they did. And I just put up with it. And then I realized, boy, these are good people. I like these folks. Not all, but most. So we started hiring them. And it's great because it's like test driving them. You get 6 or 7 interns in here, and 4 or 5 of them are just fantastic, and you make them job offers. And the others are not, and you thank them for coming. And so it wound up being a great recruiting tool for us. And I changed it. I quit charging. The $2,000 went away. We do it free, and we pay you minimum wage. And it's a good deal for us because I get these great people in here that I can pick and choose, and I get to test drive them for 3 months. But it's and I can send the ones I don't like, and thank them for coming.
Yeah, and then they get to test drive you a little while too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that's fine. And in fact, that's the best case because if they don't want to be here, I don't want them to be here, so they can make a good choice.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of effort. So that, I mean, there is a lot of vulnerability and openness that you guys have to show in order to let folks onto your farm to do something like that.
And we get some people in here sometimes that are really don't have a good understanding. A lot of non-ag people, a lot of non-southern people, and a lot of urban people. And they come in here with a set of expectations that sometimes I just fall short of. I tell them, we've been working on this program here for 25 years to have it the best we can get it to in terms of animal welfare and environmental betterment. But it ain't perfect. And sometimes we have animals that suffer a little bit. I hate it, but it happens. Sometimes we do things to the land that I wish we didn't have to do. I hate it, but it happens. And there's not a day that goes by I don't have to choose between the land and the animals. Ooh, those cattle are hungry, but I can't. They got to stay there another day. I just can't put them over there yet. Or, that land doesn't need to be grazed right now, but the cows need it. Or it's a trade-off.
Yeah, and that's part of we were talking earlier about how dynamic of a system it is, right? And no day is going to be the same day, so you're constantly balancing what you're doing on the farm.
And there's no absolute answer to any question. It's this is the best we can do right now.
Yep.
And I think it's beautiful. I love what we do. But if you are a non-ag person, non-rural person, you come in here and you look at it with that very linear view, then it's hard to have the right expectation.
Right, and then we have to communicate those expectations. So for those, farmers have a reputation of not being the best communicators, right? Like we don't really sit around and talk about our feelings or be vulnerable and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, I do.
You do. I'm that way too, but on and on, I feel like sometimes farmers are they kind of self-sabotage, and they're sometimes their worst enemy, right? And so how do you work on communication? Like, your style is just pure directness, is putting it on the table and kind of saying it how it is, and other people are going to have different ways to communicate?
I think we're pretty direct communicators here. I mean, I don't know how you cannot do it. I mean, I try to I try to be compassionate when I'm talking to somebody. I listen to what they're telling me, and I try to listen to what they're not telling me. But when it's going the other way, I try to be very, very clear in here's what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it, here's the good things that will come from it, and here's the negatives that might come from it. And the best way to get you to communicate well with me is for me to communicate well with you. So that, yeah, and that, we struggle like anybody else. I mean, there are people that I've had interns here that we just never could have what I thought was a meaningful conversation, but not much. I mean, that's the extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah. And how does that, we also talked earlier today about how when you were working underneath your dad, you guys kind of butted heads, and then here you are, you've got 2 daughters on staff that are managers at the farm, and you're really happy with, you guys are working out really well together, and y'all are communicating well together. For those working with family on their farm, or is there any words of wisdom or advice on,
I may be the last person you want to ask about that, but my dad was an only child born in 1920, and I was an only child born in 1954. And we got along famously. We had a great relationship, hunted together, fished together, ate together, drank together. It was just a great relationship, liked each other and loved each other. But when we start to work together, it was just incredible. I mean, we could be having the best time imaginable. Walk outside and start a project, and it was just nose to nose, and we just fought over everything, and it was just too much alike, I guess. And I think I mentioned to you, he won every argument. We argued all the time. He won every argument we ever had, and his trump card was, you don't forget whose damn land this is. And you can't argue with that. All you do is slam the door and spin your tires. But and when I took over the farm and ran it autonomously for 20 years and thought it was fine. And when my middle daughter wanted to come back, it was more bad news than good news. I said, oh shoot, here we go again. It's just been the opposite of that, and it's inexplicable to me. We never have any trouble, not one bit.
That's awesome. No, that's really good. So to pivot on from communicating with other people, kind of communicating with yourself a little bit. We were also talking earlier about, what you did last week in business is not what you're going to be doing, next week or next month or next year in business. Can you talk about the times that you made a decision and you thought you guys were, going well, like when y'all first rolled out grass-fed beef, but then like things changed. So how do you, what kind of conversation do you have with yourself when you have to like pivot, when you have to tell yourself, hey, this isn't working out anymore and I need to do something different?
There's a lot of stuff I'm really not good at. I can go on and on, but the one thing I am good at is admitting I've made a mistake. It doesn't bother me one. It doesn't bother me one bit to say, up. I know I told you to do that, but that ain't working. Don't do that. Don't do that. I very autonomously make decisions, and I try hard to stay observant of those decisions. And when I see it's not going the way I thought it was going to go, it doesn't bother me one bit to say, bad idea. It was my bad idea, but bad idea. Help me clean it up. That just doesn't bother me. And I'm amazed at how much it bothers so many other people. They just don't want to admit they made a mistake. And if they do admit it themselves, they don't want you to know they made a mistake. And it just doesn't bother me. I make a lot of decisions. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. And I take pride in I don't take pride in making a bad decision. I take pride in recognizing, that was a mistake. Don't do that. I know I told you to do it, but don't do it.
Yeah, so you're like, you make a decision, you're sitting back, you're watching it, and you're like, I screwed up. So at that point, you're pretty much ready just to make a change.
And I don't understand why that seems to be so difficult for people. I mean, this is not a new discovery for me. A long time ago, I said, "You made a damn mistake. Shit, don't you see it?" I tell my managers, my children who are some of my managers, don't be afraid to make a decision, and don't be afraid to make a mistake, but be the first person that realizes you made a mistake, and be the first person to say, "Whoa, problem, come help."
Yeah, and then and we have, whenever Kate and I start getting into those conversations, because we're in business together, and there's a mistake that was made, we lost money or whatever may have happened. There's like, we're kind of embarrassed if people know about it or not. And then with farming, something may have died or didn't die. You may have a crop failure, or that cute lamb that was just born got into a water trough and drowned. Just these things that happen because you're dealing with animal lives and stuff, and then you do kind of get down on yourself about that. But at the same time, you have to sit back and say, what can we learn from this? How can we move forward and not have this happen again?
Oddly, it just doesn't bother me much. I guess I've made so many mistakes, I'm used to it, but it just doesn't bother me much to say, "Whoa, bad decision. I thought that was good. That's bad."
Yeah, and there's that whole concept of like failing forward, or if you're not failing, then you're not doing anything.
And I believe that. I see that all the time. People who are so afraid of making a mistake are really more afraid of being caught making a mistake. They don't do anything. We pull the trigger. Ready, aim, fire. Ready, aim, fire. It ain't really aim. I see that all the time. It doesn't need to be fire, but just don't be afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah. So is there an example of that? So like we're not that far out of COVID, prices are still really high. There's a lot of things going on right now. Is there an example of something that you switched gears on recently that you never really thought that you would?
Well, something just about every day. You mentioned COVID, and that was a real deal changer for us in business. When I was, I'll take you way back in the 90s, I was a commodity cattle guy, and we made money every year. Not a lot. We made a profit every year, and we would live comfortably. I decided to move away from that commodity industrial beef production model, and didn't know where I was going, so I moved into this, what we do today, this pastoral, grass-fed kind of a deal. And then the timing was not great, and we didn't make money, but we were surviving. And grass-fed beef became an issue, and we did really well for a long time. And it was a wholesale business. All we did was sell for a long time, sell wholesale grass-fed beef to Whole Foods Market and Publix and other big chains. It was the time it was fortunate. We made money. It was a good deal for us. But then starting about the 2015 or so, they changed some laws, and my margins started declining, and we were not doing as well. It was okay, but not as well. And when COVID happened, it just exploded. You know, we just people we just started our online direct to consumer business, and but we weren't selling much and weren't making any money on what we were selling because it was just okay. But we sold out a product like that. I mean, just incredible what that did for us. And I should have rethought the whole business then. In retrospect, I made a really bad mistake by not just immediately shifting from all wholesale to as much direct to consumer as I could. But I didn't. I was kind of stuck in that. Produce the cows, slaughter them, sell the beef to a grocer. And then we, when the COVID panic was over and we were back relied upon the wholesale customers, that business continued to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, so did that experience moving forward, did that speed up like how fast you're ready to adapt? Like, are you kind of going into the future a little bit?
Oh yeah, I told you I'm not afraid to admit when I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I should have moved away from wholesale during the COVID panic completely, or as much as I needed to during the COVID panic, but I didn't. That was a mistake. I made it. You know, I didn't think there was another way of doing business. I thought that's what you had to do, and then ultimately, Whole Foods either dropped us or we quit them, depending on who you listen to. But you know, that business went away, and I would have been so much better off. I kept the direct to consumer, shipped by FedEx, UPS, online shopping.
Got it. Yeah. And then how is the customer response to that change? Are you guys communicating with your customer base?
Oh yeah, I'm not, but my daughter runs that part of the business, and she's got people that work for her that are on the phones and on the computers, and you know, that's I only know so much about that side of our business, but I know enough to know I like it, and that it's a direction we want to go in. I don't know how much of it we can do.
Right. And then technology has been important. Like we were talking about how Bluffton got, fiber optic, internet over here. So that's allowing you guys to do a lot of the technology-based communication that y'all are doing right now.
Poorest county in America with high-speed internet.
Yeah. No, that's we just got internet to our farm, and we've been watching them put up all the fiber optic cable, and I kind of feel like they must have felt a little bit when electricity got put out into rural areas. We're watching this, this new thing be brought out to us that the cities have, and how nice it's going to be to be able to have that.
It was a game changer for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you have to somebody who right now is looking to start up a farming business? Like, what would be some of the major things that you tell them before they, besides don't do it?
I wouldn't say don't do it. I say do it carefully. And I'm asked that question a lot, so I got a kind of a pat answer for it. But there are three things that you've got to be prepared for: raising the livestock, or fruit or vegetable, the farming side, the farming aspect of it. And that's the first part, and it's certainly uber important, but all three of them are equally important. All three of these things you got to do. But knowing how to produce on the land, and it really disturbs me when people say, I'm going to buy a farm and figure it out. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please go to work for somebody for a period of time and let them help you avoid making costly mistakes, an intern program or whatever. And intern in the ecosystem that you're going to operate in. Don't go to Arizona to learn how to do it in Maine. So that's number one. Number two is processing. You know, consumers don't buy hogs and cows and sheep. They buy beef and pork and lamb. And being able to get that done cost effectively, efficiently, is so important. And so many people just de-emphasize the importance of that, and it's as important as producing it. And then the third thing is marketing. You got to monetize it, and that, and all three of these things are, I don't want to use the word hard, are very complex. And so many people, for whatever reason, I observe, just focus on the production side of it. You know, most of them are not farm people, and they love that production side of it. And I get it. I do too. It's fun. But that's not enough. You got to be able to produce it, process it, and market it.
When people ask me about starting up a farm, I'm on the entrepreneur side. I like having my own thing going on. Some people think that a way for them to get involved in agriculture is for them to create their own farm, but the truth of the matter is that there's plenty of farms out there that need team members and they need work. So it's like you don't have to have your own farm to farm, because there's so many niches for you within the farming community, right? I mean, I don't know one farm that is fully staffed right now.
And we get 6 or 7 interns 4 times a year. Was that 20-something people getting trained every year? And most of them, when they come here, think they're going to go and farm somewhere. And most of them think that as soon as I get through here, I'm going to go and farm somewhere. And a very small number of them have gone on to own their own farm somewhere. Now, I don't want to dissuade them. I don't want to dissuade them. I want to encourage them. But the economic reality is the amount of capital it takes and the learning curve that I was just discussing, where you produce it, process it, market it, and be very daunting to step out on your own. I don't want to discourage anybody, but I also want to help them be vigilant in observing what can happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if when you go work on another farm or you visit another farm, you don't see, what you can't see, which is just years of hard work and a lot of other resources that were put into something. So sometimes there's a perception that they go to the farm and it's like, oh, they were like an overnight success, when the truth of the matter is it's taken them 20, 30, 15, 10 years to get there. It just doesn't happen overnight.
And the return on assets is so low. If you have to go to the bank and borrow 100% of the capital, I don't know how you can do that. In our case, I was blessed. I started out with a nice paid-for farm. Then I borrowed money to increase the scale and scope of it. But if I had to pay interest on all my assets, it wouldn't work. It would not work.
Yep. So you've got so that covers so that covers a lot of people who want to start their own farm, and like y'all are looking for staff right now too, right? I mean, do you also feel that other farms are looking for team members to come on as well? Is that something that you see?
I think that most farmers I know of have need and desire for staff people. I'm not sure that a high percentage of them are in the market for it, because they got to be able to afford them. And margins are tight in this business.
Right. And with taking staff on, so 1%, average statistics is that 1% of the U.S. labor force is involved in agriculture, right? And it's something like a small percentage of that 1% are doing some sort of farm business that requires a team of people, like White Oak Pastures. So
Probably 1% of 1%.
1% of 1%. And so when you're seeking out team members or staff or people to work, the odds of them having experience of working on the farm is like
Zero.
Is like 0% because people aren't being raised on farms anymore. How do you deal with, or your managers deal with, when you've got that new person coming onto a farm and they don't know how to use a drill, or they don't know anything about it, like electric fence? What would be your advice to farmers who know what they're doing, who get frustrated with the folks coming onto their farm, who don't know much? Like, I remember I saw a Facebook post, somebody posted a picture of a steel T-post. The hotline was wrapped around the T-post, obviously, grounding it out, and the picture was something like, "This is the staff I had to deal with," and I decided to comment on it, and I said, well, that's just a reflection of the training that they got on electric fence.
That's exactly right. What you said is exactly right. These the errors on the part of that farmer that just assumes these people know what they know, and it's not going to be like that. You met Eleanor. Mm-hmm. She was a superb employee who was a superb intern, and she stayed on. And I can remember the day we learned that we country people think everybody can drive a standard transmission. Everybody knows. Anybody that's 15 or more knows how to drive a standard shift transmission. Mm-hmm. And we've learned that almost no one knows how to drive a standard shift transmission.
Yeah, they're like anti-theft devices now.
Yeah. And then we decided a long time ago that's one of the first questions you asked the group. And I can remember Ella was in a big class, maybe 7 interns that year, that quarter. And I happened to be standing there when the manager was talking to him. He said, "Who here knows how to drive a standard transmission?" And nobody, it's a tall, blonde, beautiful girl. Nobody else raised their hand. A bunch of guys standing there. And, it's just, you don't assume they know anything. But you can assume they're not stupid people. You can assume that they're smart people. They just and they're here because they want to know. So they're going into it with the assumption that you ought to be able to go out there and fix that fence. That was the farmer's fault. He's stupid. The intern wasn't stupid.
Yeah. So what you're looking for in people, and what your eye out is for people who are positive, open, cool to be around, open to learning, open to admitting that they don't know something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other words of wisdom that you wanted to share with us?
What you want to
know? With the new book, how's been the response on the book that just came out?
More people bought it than any book I've ever written.
Yeah, there you go.
It never occurred to me to write a book. The way my mind works is very cyclical, not very linear. It takes a linear mind, I think, to write a book. You've got to put chapters and things chronologically or however. I can't do that. The way my mind works is whatever comes up is what's up. And it works backwards and forwards. So I got a call from some people representing Viking, Penguin, Random House, and about writing a book, and it was just about funny to me. I said, I can't do that. Thank you. And ultimately, my daughter got involved, and they agreed to hire somebody to help write the book. They hired a young woman named Emily Graven, who's the same age as my oldest daughter. And she's a sweetheart, and I fell in love with her. Just was brilliant, from England, just a sweetheart, lives in California. And she is a ghost writer. And we had she spent a lot of time here. And it took over a year to write down a book. We had a phone date every Friday afternoon, and it could be 2 hours, it could be 4 hours. It was painful. I mean, I started drinking as soon as the meeting was over every Friday. But she would, we would get all the, she liked me and I liked her, and we get all the, hey, how you doing, out of the way. She'd say, okay. And she'd get started. And she had a list of questions, and she'd ask. And they weren't yes or no questions. They were discussion questions that you had to think a lot about. And she must have had some sort of, and she was recording it and she was typing. She must have had some kind of program, magic computer program, that pulled up things it was in reference to. She'd ask me about some topic and I would be telling the story. She'd interrupt. She'd say, wait a minute. You told me on April 4th something different. Mm-hmm. I say, no. That was a different, I'd explain why she thought it was a discrepancy in the two stories. But it was just, I'm not going to say it was fun. It wasn't fun, but it was interesting. I was so glad it was over.
Yeah.
There won't be a volume 2.
Yeah, I hear you.
I give you my word.
Yeah. What is, what are some of the takeaways that you want folks to get out of, the book? Like, if you had some messages that you really wanted to, pound your fists against the table about, what do you want people to know?
I want them to understand the difference in the industrial linear food production system that we have in place that's feeding all of them versus the working with nature, holistic food production system that fed people up until World War II. This linear system, this industrial system, the commodity system that we're in, is pretty new. I mean, World War II, was that 70 years ago? Mm-hmm. It's not that long.
Not long ago at all.
And I'm not saying it all started that day, but the industrialization of agriculture was like this until 1946, and it went like that. And my family lived it. My great-grandfather came to this farm in 1866 and farmed it in a holistic way. He wouldn't use that word, that's what that was. His son, my grandfather, took over the farm and farmed it that way. And I can tell you how that looked. But then his son, my dad, took over the farm in 1945, 1946. And that's when it changed. My dad took the farm from being a polycultural operation with many different species of plants and animals to a very monocultural, linear cattle operation. And my dad was really good at it and made money doing it and took a lot of pride in the fact, he wouldn't have said this, but he was a cowboy, so he wouldn't have said it, but he took pride in the fact he was an expert in the cattle business. His dad, his granddad, had to be experts in all different kinds, cows, hogs, sheep, goats, vegetables. So he ran the farm that way and made money and did well with it. And all coming up, all I ever wanted to do was run the farm industrially, just like my dad, and did for 20 years.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's a ecological thing, it's an environmental thing, an industrial agricultural model versus a holistic model, but also the holistic model, a non-linear way to think. It's also going to help out, ourselves, our community, will make the surroundings better than what it is, and just involving so many other people. Because if you have a holistic model, a non-linear model, you need other people involved, and so you're gonna have community, and then people are going to be involved in things that are bigger than them, And to me, just hanging out with your crew that I did a little bit today, there's that camaraderie and there's a good morale, and it's just all that good things that comes with that non-linear system as well.
Well, the linear industrial food production system that feeds us, most of us, is we think of it as being just uber efficient. It makes food just so obscenely cheap. It just seems like great efficiency. And it's efficient. But most of that efficiency comes from casting off those costs to somewhere else. The dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, that's a huge cost of industrial food production that industrial food producers are not bearing. Atrazine in the polar ice caps, extinction of species, plants and animals and we can just talk about all day long the incredible cost that this industrial linear food production system is incurring, but we're not paying it. It's just cast off. It'll be paid sooner or later.
Sooner or later, the bill is going to come due.
But it won't be. But it won't be paid by the perpetrators. It'll be paid by everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's why you put the book out, A Bold Return to Giving a Damn by Will Harris of White Oak Pastures. So I want everybody to go out and get the book. It's also available in audiobook, so if you want to listen to it while you're on the tractor or doing some chores or something, that's available to you. So, Will, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I could have spent the whole day videoing that interview. It's always great to talk to folks about that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to thank you for watching the video. Again, please subscribe. Please share the channel. We're very much in our infancy in this platform of what we're trying to do. So the more feedback I get from you, the more you share the channel, the more you comment, that fuels me and keeps me going, keeps me real positive with what we're doing. My goal here is to influence just one person. So if I help out one person, and I know I've already helped out a couple of people that have contacted me, that keeps me going. I don't need to help 1,000 people. I'd like to help 1,000 people, but we're just looking to help out one person at a time. This is a slow, marathon, incremental platform that we're working on here. We're not in a rush. We want quality. I just wanted to close out with our BTF mantra. As a BTF, I will strive to sharpen both myself and others every day, knowing that I may fail. I will start each day anew by influencing what I am able to, relative to my own skills and talents. I will lead by example physically, mentally, morally, socially, and ecologically. I will incrementally do the work required to elevate myself, my goals, my team, and my leadership abilities. Everybody have a good one. I hope you have a great week.